CNortonProductions Podcast. And today we have Dr. Preston Wilson, and we are going to allow him to introduce himself. We are so thankful he is here today. So, Dr. Wilson, can you please tell everybody who you are, where you're from, where'd you go to school, and what are you doing?
Yes, so my name is Dr. Preston Wilson. I am originally from Durham, North Carolina. I currently serve as the director of the Fisk Jubilee Singers at the illustrious Fisk University. And it is illustrious because I am a 2010 graduate of said institution, where I was a member of the Fisk Jubilee Singers under the tutelage of the late, great Dr. Paul T. Kwame.
Amazing. So, can you tell everybody where you went to school and what your educational background is?
So yes, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Music Education from Fisk University. I have a Master's of Music and Choral Music Education from Bowling Green State University in Ohio. I taught in the public school system for about 6 years, 3 years of K-8 general music, and then 3 years of high school choir. Was inspired by that experience and pursued my PhD in music education from the University of Missouri in Columbia. Upon leaving there, my first teaching job was at Westminster Choir College of Rider University, right outside of Princeton, New Jersey. And then 3 years ago, I returned to Nashville to assume the position of the director of the Jubilee Singers here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow, such an amazing career there, for real.
I get around.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. So what drew you to choral music? So how did music become your thing, and why choir? Why choral music?
I don't know. It's just always something I've enjoyed. Being in a traditionally, a black background, music was a part of uh, the fiber of my existence. So music was associated with, cleaning. I knew that if I heard Mahalia Jackson or the OJs on Saturday morning, time to get the Lysol and going to the bathroom. We were at church on Sundays and midweek service. I was always very creative. We had a piano in my house, so my mom has a picture of me. I was playing the piano with one hand and drumming a drum set with the other hand. So I've always just been very creative. But music was the thing that kind of stuck with me, and then apparently I was good at it. So and here we are.
I feel it. So was your family musical? Did your parents play, or your siblings, if you have any?
My dad is like the sixth heartbeat. Is not a legitimate singer. And my mother, she sang in the choir at her undergrad at Livingstone. And she plays hymns. But that's it. I'm the only person who has been musical. My sister can sing too. She sang in the praise team at church. My niece played the violin, but I'm the only person that was like, "Oh yeah, music. That's my thing. That's what I'm gonna do."
Wow, that's so cool. So let's go. So tell me, how did you end up at Fisk for undergrad? When did you first become aware of the Fisk Jubilee Singers, and what did it mean to you to go there as an undergraduate, as a young scholar at that time?
Absolutely. So I first heard the Jubilee Singers in the sixth grade. They did a concert at Duke University. My mother took me, and now mind you, my parents always told me, you can go to whatever college you want to as long as it's an HBCU. And I said, okay, whatever. I'm 12. I don't know. And so in the sixth grade, the Jubilee Singers came to Duke University, did a concert. And I remember that was the first time I had seen black people sing and it not be jazz, R&B, or gospel, but it was this thing that was different that we now call the Negro spiritual. And I remember I turned to my mom and I said, I'm going to do that. And she says, okay, I'm 12. I want to do everything, right? And so she bought me a book called A Band of Angels, which is the picture book on the Jubilee Singers. I did a book report on it. And from then on, I said, I'm going to be a Fisk Jubilee singer. I'm going to go to Fisk University. My sophomore year of high school, one of my music mentors, music heroes, Mrs. Scott Hill, was retiring from my school, Durham School of the Arts. And she brought me to her office one day and she said, Preston, there's a book that was given to me and I never knew who to give it to. And, as I'm leaving, I now know who to give that book to. And so she gave me this book. And this book was called the Jubilee Singers and their songs. They only made like a few hundred copies of these books, and she had
Wow.
one and she gave it to me. And so I knew that that's what I was going to do. And then that same summer, after I got that book, my parents took me to Nashville, and I toured the campus. And I remember sitting in the chapel. I sat at the piano, and I looked around. And I said, "Yeah, this is it." and and it has been it. And Fisk is the only school I applied to. It's the only school I wanted to go to. And the rest is history. I got here, and I was a Jubilee singer, and it was the greatest 4 years of my life.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had talked a little bit about the spirituals. So what drew you to the tradition of spirituals?
So they weren't gospel. So there was not the same approach as far as like tone production and embellishment, but it was still very much black and beautiful. And then as I got older and learned about the spiritual and their history, and then the spiritual's connections to the Fish Jubilee Singers specifically, the story was just so very compelling about how this music kind of arrested people when they heard it. And it kind of had the same effect on me that but it was because I had never heard black people sound like this before. But it still sounded like black people. So yeah, that's really what it was. It was just that it sounded black, just not like the black I was used to.
Do you think that like fueled you to pursue that path even more, like wanting to be that person for somebody else?
Well, yes. Now, as the director of Jubilee Singers, I have made it a part of my development strategy that we are doing performances for younger audiences. If we can provide some sort of subsidy for tickets or free tickets or something like that. Because just how I was in the 6th grade and I saw this group of people and I said, ooh, I want to do that. I want to make sure that I am providing those same type of experiences for students who come to our concerts. I want them to see themselves on stage, and even if they don't desire to be a Jubilee singer, but the representation, we talk about how important representation is,
Yeah.
just them seeing themselves on stage can, spark them to be like, oh, well, I don't sing, but I do dance, and I would love to be able to dance. So I want to make sure that I'm providing the opportunity for students to see themselves in the arts in creative ways.
Yeah. So, in still talking about the singers, how do you describe the legacy to your students today in the group? Like, how do you teach them about the history and make them feel good about what they're a part of?
So I do it a few different ways. One, we have a retreat every year at the beginning. So we audition every year. So your spot is not guaranteed every year. So there is this, for lack of a better word, competition, this mystery about it. So people like what they not supposed to know, right? So this idea of this mystery kind of keeps people engaged. Like, ooh, I want to know more about this. Everybody can't be a part of this, so I want to be a part of it, right? So there's that. At our retreat every year that we do, there's a session specifically for alumni, Jubilee Singer alumni, to come and share with the current singers. I facilitate some questions, but I ask the singers to ask questions to the alums, just share about your favorite trip, or what does this mean to you. But then also in rehearsals, I contextualize the music. We talk about, if this is coming from a Bible verse, what is the Bible verse? What was happening around the time? Why do you think this person made that? Is there a personal connection that you have to this song? We did an interview for an entity in the Netherlands, and one of my students said that, while I was not enslaved and my grandmother was not enslaved, but her mother was enslaved. And so you can hear my great grandmother's experience in my voice. And that is what I try to instill in students, is that yes, you may not be directly connected, but you're connected to ancestors who come with you when you go on stage, and you are sharing their story and their experience when you are on stage. And so that is a way that I kind of get students to understand you're not just singing songs. Like there is actual uh, liberation. There is actual joy. There is actual healing power that comes from you when you sing these songs in your concerts.
Mm. So, in your opinion, what makes the Jubilee Singers different from other collegiate choral ensembles?
First and foremost, I actually had a good conversation about this with someone just recently. There was this thing that was on like HBCU Choir Buzz or something about like the top choirs, and some Fiskites were upset. They were like, they felt slighted. They're like, why weren't the Fisk Jubilee Singers included in the rankings? Da, da, da. And I will say that I never considered the Jubilee Singers a choir. We've always been an ensemble. And even in the write up said that the Fisk Jubilee Singers were kind of the prototype for a lot of the choral ensembles that we have um, on our HBCU campuses. Even some of the choirs that were created, the Jubilee Singers at Westminster Choir College were created in the image or in the likeness of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. We have Nathaniel Deck, and what he did was because him being influenced by the Jubilee Singers. At Bethune-Cookman, they were influenced by the Jubilee Singers. So um, I believe that the Jubilee Singers, while we did not create different things, because of the platform that we were on, we were able to make a lot of things possible, not just for Black music history, but American music history, and it impacted the world's music history.
Mm. So, how do you balance that honoring the historical sound and mission of the ensemble while also speaking to today's audience?
So I toe the line. I'm very considerate in the way that I toe the line. I look at what we do as a standard regression. So 95%
Research
of what we do.
terminology.
Yeah, sorry.
PhD coming out, right?
You can take me out, but you can't take it out of me.
That's right.
Uh, 95% of what we do is going to be the Negro spiritual or the African American spiritual, what have you. We're always going to sing these songs about the experiences of enslaved Americans, African Americans. We're going to sing those about those experiences through these songs. However, when the Jubilee Singers first started performing, they were not singing Negro spirituals. They, in fact, did not want to sing the Negro spirituals. They did not want to program them because they were so deeply personal to them. But when they performed them, uh, the director saw just how arrested, as I shared, the audiences, they were just enthralled. Like they had never heard this sound before. The director himself, when he first heard them singing, this rumored that they were singing "Steal Away," and then they just started, singing. These are the things they just did, and he was like, "Oh my God!" And that's why we started singing the Negro spirituals in our concerts, right? So 2.5% of the music we do is going to be the early music, the classical music, the things that were popular at the time, right? And then on the other end, the other 2.5% is going to be some things that are more contemporary, things that are direct descendants of the Negro spiritual, so a cappella gospel, so vocal jazz, and then we do some recording that is more commercial, so there's some of that. But we're never not going to sing the Negro spiritual. That is always going to be the core of what we do. And so that is,
So,
I'm constantly thinking about how we can, be rooted in tradition but growing in innovation.
so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but just to reiterate, what responsibilities come with leading an ensemble whose history is tied so deeply to African American resilience, education, and cultural preservation?
Funding, we need money. But no,
Heard it here first, right? Send your checks, make them payable to.
capitalism, okay? Um, so the Jubilee Singers are very interesting because we are a professional performing ensemble represented by Reliant Talent Agency, who is fantabulous. I love them so much. But we're also a credit-bearing course, right? So we have tests, we take attendance, and things like that, right?
Fun times in higher ed.
Oh wow, it's a jungle sometimes. How I keep from going under, as the songwriter says. Um, so it's a class, right? This professional performing ensemble, but then there's also the branding aspect of it. The students, myself included, are often being called upon for interviews and appearances and things like that, statements, because we're the ambassadors of an art form, but also ambassadors of this institution. And then there's the performance aspect. Most collegiate ensembles that are performing, music ensembles that are performing, they maybe have 2 to 3 performances a semester. The Jubilee Singers average around 12 to 13 per semester, right?
Wow.
And so this is all taking place for that one class. I also have 3 other classes, and I'm researching, and I'm doing speaking engagements, and I have a church job. And so, yes, it is a balancing act. I often look at it as we're spinning plates, so I have like these 5 plates, and so I'm spinning one, and then that's good, all right, and I'll go spin another one. And so you just have to manage your time so that you can do it well. But those are all things I think about because there are many facets to the Jubilee Singers, more than just singing some Negro spirituals at a concert.
So, in your view, why are spirituals still relevant in 2026?
Because their message has not changed, and it's just as I wouldn't even say relevant. I think relevant is an understatement. They're necessary, right? I've always been a advocate that Nikki Giovanni had once said, it is the music of those Africans that kept them alive across chattel slavery, across transatlantic destination. It is the music that kept them alive. It was their ingenuity that allowed them to create a new language to communicate. And I think that the Negro spiritual is doing the same thing. It's keeping people alive. And what I am hoping is that people will understand that the Negro spiritual, while they may sound beautiful, they are giving us instructions on how to navigate this world, and we just have to heed to those instructions. And we're not gonna kumbaya our way out of it. Like, you can't
Amen.
just sing about it. You got to sing it. And then what is this song telling us to do? Is it telling us to organize? Is it telling us to mobilize? Is it telling us to believe in something? Well, what are we believing in? Is it telling us for hope for a better future? Well, we got to dream of what that better future is and then move towards that. And so the spiritual are so important because they are necessary for today. But then historically, the Negro spiritual, again, why the Jubilee Singers are important, not because we created the Negro spiritual, but we put it on a world stage and shared it with the world, this sound with the world. And because of that, we now have all of these different genres of American music, because the Negro spiritual is the first uniquely American music genre. But because of what they did, we now have gospel and blues and jazz. So there's these descendants, right? And so the Negro spiritual are important today because they are the first generation of a lot of the genres that we know and love today.
So, just out of curiosity for the audience, what is one spiritual that you believe every person should hear and why? Like,
Yuck! I hate that question. So there's one that and of course there are different arrangements, and good Negro spirituals are going to keep the integrity by maintaining the tune, right? There's one that I always enjoy, which is "Hold On." Keep your hand on the plow. Hold on. Um, there's also "I'll Never Turn Back No More." Uh, Hall Johnson has an arrangement that is gorgeous. But I choose "Hold On" because of the message. Keep moving forward. Keep your hand on the gospel plow. Keep doing the good work.
Mm.
Um, but then "I'll Never Turn Back No More" by Hall Johnson. It sounds like blackness. It sounds like the experience of black people for those 400 years. I think
Mm.
that's important for our own awareness. Um, and then there's also a song that gives us hope, like "Sweet Home." Um, that we will. It won't always be like this. So there's encouragement, right? So the Negro spirituals have just different utilities. So it's hard to choose one because they all have something that I want to harp on. So that's
Yeah.
why I think the question.
So this is me curiosity, but do you have a favorite arranger or anybody that's done? Like I like William Dawson because being based here in Auburn, close to
So
Mesquite.
we all love Moses Hogan.
Mm.
We'll love him down. I really like Hall Johnson. I just like his use of harmonic language. Um, I love Undine Smith Moore. Her range. She's also a Fisk guy. Her range.
Had to get that in there,
You just said
right?
you know. As we are here today, approaching Juneteenth. Um, just her range at how she would tell stories with the music
Mm.
was great. Yes, we love Dawson, but something that I look forward to doing as a director now is highlighting more female composers, and highlighting more composers who are uh, contemporary, still living.
Mm.
So we have Marcus Garrett, we have Brandon Boyd, we have Kyle Wooten. Um, we have younger people, Emmanuel Brunson, who are making music uh, with the help of the ancestors.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I have some favorites, but I'm always happy to find new favorites in platform thing.
Mm. So that's a good segue. So one question that I had wrote down in my notes here was, what do you think audiences and people often misunderstand about spirituals? To the person that doesn't know when they hear it for the first time, if
First
they're
and
not.
foremost, spirituals and gospel, not the same thing. A rectangle is a square, but a square is not a rectangle. Okay? So, spirituals fit into the sacred music category. Gospel music is in the sacred music category. But the approach to them is very different. Gospel music will involve different instruments. Um, there's lots of embellishment. There's sometimes multiple forces. Um, and that's wonderful. That's great. There's clapping and rocking and dancing. Like there's things about it. But the Negro spiritual, at least the SATB a cappella Negro spiritual, of course, doesn't use music. It's not more refined, but it's a different approach. The focus is on like tone production and the experience of storytelling and really leaning into text painting with our voice. Um, there's not a lot of movement often. There's not a lot of snapping and swaying and things. There with the Jubilee Singers, we will communicate,
Mm.
um, but those things are just not necessarily associated with that. So it's more so the approach is
Mm.
different. Um, and then, but I will say it is okay to call them Negro spirituals. It is okay to call them African American spirituals. Both are accurate. I'm always going to call them Negro spirituals by choice. But if some people are not comfortable with that, that's fine. But you're not wrong in calling them that. I
Mm.
think sometimes we get hung up on, oh, we got to say the right thing. Like they're Negro spirituals, but African American spirituals, right? They are Negro spirituals have range, right? And they have been performed for years. Sometimes they haven't always been recorded or transcribed, which is why I'm so happy to platform a lot of the newer composers, contemporary composers, because they're making sure that these songs that had once been passed down through oral tradition, and when those people were no longer orating them, we lost them so that we're not losing them. So know that Negro spirituals are vast. There's more than Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and
Wade in the water.
Water, Follow the Drinking Gourd. Like there's just so much more. And it's
Deep
not to say that those Go Down Moses. It's not to say that those songs are not important, but there are so many other songs, and there are so many other experiences that we're missing by not singing those songs.
It makes me start to think about how many we've lost.
Yes.
How many did not get that opportunity to be transcribed or just to be written
Mhm.
down? How many have we
Mhm.
lost throughout time? Like, there's
Correct.
probably no telling how many.
Correct. And I mean, to be very honest, historically, some of our hymns, especially Southern hymns,
Mm.
those were Negro tunes that were appropriated because of the time. The
Mm.
people who created them, the Negroes that created them, were not given the credit for them.
Mm.
And so some of the hymns that we sing were created by Black people, and we just don't know.
So that really segues me into this next question. But what do you say to the when non-black performers or ensembles choose to program a spiritual? What historical, cultural, or musical responsibility should they consider before bringing that repertoire to the stage?
So first and foremost, check the way that you think about non-classical music, right? What do I mean by that? Why do you want to program a Negro spiritual? Are you programming it because you want people to understand a different way of music making or a different experience of music making? Are you choosing a Negro spiritual because you want to be seen as diverse? Are you choosing a Negro spiritual because this particular one is energetic, and so let's close our concert with this because it's moving and it's
Mm.
rhythmic and da 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 da. So check the reason why. That's the first thing you gotta do. And the second thing, when you decide to do it, the same critical analysis you would give to a Brahms, to uh, a Beethoven, to a Mozart, the traditional Weedums, Western European dead men, the same critical analysis and practice and attention to detail that you would give them, give to the Negro spiritual. Don't just gloss over it. Um, and more importantly, the Negro spiritual, at least it is with the Jubilee Singers, uh, is a collaborative effort. We are music makers, we're musicians, and we're making music together. So we should be communicating and learning
Mm.
from one another. So for Negro spirituals in non-black spaces, use culture bearers. But don't just bring a culture bearer to come talk to your people for, at one rehearsal for Zoom. Bring them to your ensemble. Let them share their experiences, do the homework of the history of the piece. Let them do something with you on your concert. If you bring them into town, let them conduct part of the concert. Like, make it collaborative. Don't just, yeah, we brought in this person, who did it. That's cute. Yeah, but what are we doing? Philosophically, as a researcher, I'm always concerned with when the music stops, then what? Right. So if we're trying to make change about something in terms of social justice, what have you, if we have a social justice concert, that's beautiful. Did y'all just sing some songs, or were people changed? Did they change the way they think about it? Are they gonna change the way they move?
Mm.
We're having a social justice moment about mental health. Do you have mental health professionals there? Are you connecting people to mental health services when you're done? Right.
Like, take it past just doing it for the sake of doing it.
When the music stops, what happens?
Right.
Because that's where the work ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at history of protests and civil disobedience, in many ways, the protest was not the march. The march was the vehicle to get to the protest. So they marched and brought awareness, but then they had work to do once they got to the destination, right? And so we always got to consider, why am I doing this? Make sure I contextualize it and do it as I should. But then when we do it, make sure it's collaborative so that it's ongoing, it's sustainable. It's not just a one and done. Don't put the Negro Spiritual on the Pops concert. If you're going to sing it with Brahms Requiem, put it on the same program. Don't other it. Don't ostracize it. Right.
Wow. So what role do you think HBCUs play in general in preserving and teaching African American musical traditions?
It's for us by us. So we should be at the helm, right? I said in my dissertation that,
By the way, you
again,
should go check that out. Check out his dissertation. 10 out of 10.
for obvious reasons.
Right.
But in my dissertation, I talk about this collaborative effort where, we should be there. I said, there are some things that me as a black man, there's an authenticity that I have with my black students that my counterparts may not have. And then there is some privilege and access that my counterparts have that I do not have. So we should be working together, collaborating for sustainability, right? There's an authenticity that I bring to your access that can bring about real change in terms of policy, in terms of curriculum, in terms of awareness, right? So we have to work together, right? And so HBCUs are a way for us to do that, right? So HBCUs should really, continue digging into those traditions that we know and love. But then when our counterparts, like, use your access, use your privilege to platform what we're doing, because it is great, it's wonderful, it's awesome. I can also say that as a black person going to an HBCU, there have been times where people have almost tried to discredit my experience at an HBCU. Someone saying, like, why would you want to go to a school where it's all black people? Or, you should want to be in a diverse, a diverse area, a diverse context. And I always share with them, well, what makes you think that HBCUs aren't diverse? Who told you that? You thought we was all the same? Blackness is not a monolith, And so there was I was ignorant when I first got there. My version of blackness was different than other people's version of blackness when I got to Fisk. And I got to Fisk and I was like, wait. There's blackness from Chicago, which is different than blackness in California, which is different than blackness in Atlanta, which is different than blackness in the Caribbean, which is different than in blackness in African countries. There's differences in blackness in East African. There's difference in blackness in West African. So, like, of course it's diverse, right? And then I also share with that person, I have the rest of my life to be a minority. So I really want to take these 4 years, these first 4 formative years of my life, to not have to justify my existence and identity in spaces. I did that in high school. I was the only black person in the show choir. I was the only black person in the competition, right? For these 4 years, I wasn't. And it made me a better person when I got out. It made me much more human. I could see different perspectives. I could embrace different points of view because of that experience. So everybody needs to go to HBCU, especially if you're a black person, because it will change the way that you think about yourself and the people that you connect with.
Amen. I agree. So this question, and I feel like, as a white person that went to two HBCUs, I feel like this question really hits home for me, being on the opposite coin in the space at times. But as an educator, teaching music that's so deeply rooted in faith and Black history and struggle and resilience, how do you approach teaching non-Black students that are in the space while still honoring the weight of the music and the cultural significance? So, like, for example, if you had a non-Black student in the Fish Jubilees or in one of your classes, like somebody like me, for example.
I'm not changing anything. You took this class, which means that you were prepared for all the information that was going to come with it. Because I shouldn't have to treat you differently.
Right.
So, and I don't. So, and as teachers, it is not our job. It's not our job to tell you what to think. It is our job to get you to think.
Amen.
I'm giving you the tools.
Intellectual property of Preston Wilson right there. Coined phrase, right?
I'm giving you the tools. Now, you can build a house. You can build a surfboard. You can build a skateboard. You could build a sandbox. But you have the tools and the materials. I'm not telling you what to build. I'm just telling you to build something that you create. Now, as a way of getting you, to be creative, I'm going to say, all right, here are the tools for building a sandbox. Here are the materials. But that sandbox can look how you want it to look. You can color it differently. Your dimensions can be different. You can, instead of putting sand in there, you might want to put rice, right? But you still built this thing, and it caused you to think. And so not only do you now know how to build a sandbox, but now you have everybody else who built a sandbox differently. And so now I have another way of thinking about sandboxes. All right? And so my job as a teacher is to give you the tools. It's very constructivist of me. But to give you the tools, to give you the materials, and you build it. And so if I have a white person or a non-Black person coming to my class, you're going to be well-versed in the Black experience because that's what I'm teaching.
Amen. Amen. So let's, just to shift gears a little bit, I want to talk more about your role as the director. We've talked a lot about genre and other things around that, but what has been one of the most meaningful moments for you as the director of the Fish Jubilee Singers up to this point? Like any performance, any opportunity, something that just stands out, like you're like, man, I'm proud of you.
So, I have two. And as I'm a millennial, and my students call me old on a regular basis. Sometimes on the yard, I will be referred to as Dr. Unk. I still am struggling with that. I still have thoughts about being called Unk. Like, I feel like y'all skipped something. I'm not even 40 yet, but I share that to say, as I mature, I have been much more aware of my feelings and being present in other people's experiences and honoring those. So there are two experiences that I had that have been pivotal for me as a director. Number one, my first semester as Jubilee singer, we had an opportunity to sing for the UNCF Gala in Washington, D.C. And we had a free day. And so I made sure that we went to the Smithsonian African American Heritage Museum. And there is a small part of the exhibit about the Fish Jubilee Singers. And so me, as my first semester as a director, taking my students to that exhibit and then singing at that exhibit was it shifted something for me to be able to take the youngins back to the elders and honor them in song. Was, I don't know how I made it through that. And they was all crying too, so it was a mess, right? And so there was just something about being able to connect the dots. And most importantly, me as a high school teacher and being really, really, really adamant about student success and whatever that looks like. But for my students to go to that location and then they get it. The light bulb went off. They understood, like they made a connection. There's nothing more that I could have had, right? Secondly, this year, we the Jubilee Singers did the portrait. So the very famous portrait that was done by Edmund Havell in 1873, I believe it was, that sits on our campus now. We put on those period pieces and we sing the songs from the songbook, right? We haven't done the portrait in almost 10 years. The last time we did the portrait was virtually because it was during COVID, but we haven't done the portrait in person in a number of years. And so we were doing the portrait. I did the portrait when I was a singer with Dr. Kwame. And we were doing the last song, an arrangement of Still Away. And the sun was setting. And as the sun was setting and they're singing, this serene line, the sunlight just kind of hits everyone's face. And one of my classmates was like, "Hey, Preston, Dr. Kwame was with us at the concert." I was like, "He's always with me." And they were like, "No, you didn't see him showing his smile with the portrait." And of course, I looked at the video, and with that context, out of here, I was a mess. But for me, my most important moments are when my students get it, when we make connections from the young and the old, when we get it, when we build that bridge. That's what my first TED Talk was about. When we build that bridge between the elders and the youngins, that is what's most important to me.
Wow, very powerful. How do you define success for your ensemble today?
If they don't get cussed out,
And that was not Dr. Wilson at that
that was
moment.
Preston.
That was the
Dr. Wilson was
not PhD Preston.
right. CNorton Productions does not endorse the
Correct.
opinions.
The views and the items expressed here are that of the people.
But no, success for me, is not tiered, right? The Jubilee Singers on the syllabus, you can ask them knowledge of music, being on time, a nice attitude, a good work ethic, a solid work ethic, consistency. None of that has anything to do with talent, right? So your job as a Fifth Jubilee singer is to be professional, punctual, and prepared. Your outfits are taken care of. We feed you well. Your lodging is taken care of. Your transportation is taken care of. So your job is to come here prepared, punctual, and perform. What do you mean you're late and you don't know your music? What else did you have to do concerning this class? Nothing. What do you mean you don't know your music? There's a YouTube playlist. Your music is in print and it's digital. I send voice notes. Y'all have sectionals. So it's a choice that you didn't. It's a choice. And so because of your choice, there are consequences to that. Right? So success for me is when those 3 P's take place. When you are prepared, you are punctual, and you are professional. That's how I know.
You said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it.
Oh, so we talked a lot about this, but like, how does it feel for you to stand in front of this ensemble knowing the history behind the name? Like, I know we talked about the moments that felt the most powerful, like your first experiences hearing it, you going there, you've been an alumni of the school. But how does it feel now, even in this time, and having done this now for a couple of years, how does it feel to stand in front of the ensemble just knowing what you're directing?
It's almost, I'm starting my 3rd full year as a director. It feels like I've been here longer.
I was thinking at least 5, I'm not gonna lie.
My joints agree with you. It is still surreal on Tuesdays and Thursdays, like when I'm getting out of my car, walking to rehearsal, and I'm walking and I can hear them talking or hear them rehearsing before rehearsal starts. And it's still surreal. Like, you're really directing this ensemble, and it's interesting for me at least because I came to Fisk to be a Jubilee singer. That's the sole reason why I applied, because I wanted to be a Jubilee singer. And so, coming to Fisk, being a Jubilee singer, going and experiencing the world and entertainment industry, and then coming back as director, like my mind is blown every time I think about that. And my mind is also blown when I look at, for those who are believers in Christ, I can literally look at my life and see how this was a part of my path. Me seeing them in the sixth grade, me going to Fisk, me getting that book from my teacher, then going to Fisk, and then being a Jubilee singer, and then getting my master's, and then teaching high school, and then getting my PhD, then going to Westminster, and then coming back here. I see I had to go to Westminster to get this job. I had to go to Bowling Green to teach in public school. I had to go to public school and teach to get to Mizzou. Like, so I can just see ordered steps, right? And so it's still surreal that I get to do it. So I don't know. It's hard to encapsulate and try to articulate, when I get up in front of them. Now that all goes out the window when we start in the downbeat and, they flat, but at the onset when we start. But it really is it is the greatest thing teaching those students. I love teaching at Fisk, don't get me wrong, but rehearsals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and those have always been my favorite days of the week.
And just to clarify, you wanted to go to Fisk for the Fisk Jubilee Singers, but was it always your plan to be the director? Like, was that ever in the forefront of your thoughts? Like, was that ever in the plans for you?
I don't. Can I say? I'm gonna say no in English and in Spanish. No, I had no idea. Coming back to Fisk outside of homecoming was not on my life's bingo card. I did want to work at the HBCU. And again, talking about prayer, when I prayed, I said, Lord, I want to teach at the HBCU in a metropolitan area. I thought I was going somewhere on the Northeast. And then here I am in Nashville. And I look back, and the Lord will remind me, like, well, you said you wanted to be at HBCU. And you said you wanted to be in the metropolitan area. Ain't nothing blacker than Fisk, and ain't nothing more metropolitan than Nashville. So, yeah, I had it never was in my purview. And then, Dr. Kwame, unbeknownst to me, told me I was going to, he didn't never told me, he told other people that he wanted me to be his successor. He never told me, which I think is interesting. It's weird. And he's with me all the time. He drops Easter eggs all the time in my office when I'm performing. So, coming back here, not really applying, to really just being said, hey, we think you should look into this. And then here we are. Now I'm honored and humbled and blessed to be doing what I get to do.
So, just kind of rounding that out, what do you hope students carry away with them after their time in the ensemble? Like, so we're speaking to like the non-music major that's in your ensemble. They're part of this legacy. They're doing the thing. What do you hope they gain from that experience and take with them?
I hope they understand, as cliche as it may sound, I hope they understand how much their voice matters. Your voice is important. Your voice, musically and otherwise. Your voice, what it is that you have to say, your thoughts, your aspirations, your dreams, your visions, those things are important. And don't let them die because you're scared or you're anxious or you don't have the money or you don't have the resources. Because the Jubilee Singers didn't have none of that either. And because they did not give up, because they understood, or maybe they didn't even understand that what they were doing was bigger than who they were, right? But because of their consistency, their tenacity, they changed the world, right? And so our job as teachers is to encourage them, and not just in content. Yes, you got to do a job, but also find out what it is that you're good at, that you can continue to grow at, that is going to make the world a better place.
Mm.
I know that me teaching makes the world a better place.
Amen.
It does, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way, and I don't make apology about it. But I know I was gifted to do this because being alive is a gift. And so
Mm.
I'm going to use that gift to the best of my ability. I'm not going to discount my existence by sitting on my ideas and sitting on the things that I want to do. I'm going to do them. And so my job as a teacher is to encourage them, to give them the tools, to give them the resources, to give them the awareness to make those things happen.
Which is why we talk all the time, and I'm like, I don't understand. Please help me. Life question, PhD question, career question. Like, let me tell you, still
And
teaching.
I'm happy to share all that I can with you because someone helped me. And not only did someone help me, but they helped me in a real way. It wasn't like a gatekeepy type of thing where they were like, they know information, but I'm only going to share certain parts with you. I want people to go out into the world as informed as possible so they are making the best choice that they need to for themselves. So I'm always happy to help.
Amen. So for those of you that don't know, I met him before he was doctor, and I was a very young teacher in Nashville. And you were a PhD student, right? Yeah, you were finishing up, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
I
so
was dissertating.
yeah, that's right. And so he had reached out, and then it was interesting because like it just circled back around, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to speak to my seminar class at Westminster?" And then it wasn't shortly after that he was like, I had found out, oh, he's director of Fisk Jubilee Singers, like small world, right? So now when I tell people that I'm friends with the director, they're like, oh, that's so cool, and I'm like, well, yeah, you
I needed a job to pay these bills because capitalism, all right?
know.
So,
Look. So a few more questions before we wrap up, but like one of the things I had wrote down is, so what would you say to a young black singer who is trying to find their place in classical sacred choral music? What's the one piece of advice you would give them navigating the space?
don't let church mess you up. Don't let church mess you up. If you are a lyric tenor, your voice is light and has all this agility, don't let them tell you got to squall all service. Don't let them tell you to bring that chest up. Don't do it. That's first thing. Second thing is practice. Listen to your teachers and practice. Listen to your teachers and practice. If they tell you to do something, if there's an exercise they tell you to do, don't just do it in your studio. Do it in your practice time. Learn your music. Go to class. Right? And it sounds like these are very arbitrary things to do.
Mm,
But this generation of students that we have now
mm,
are experiencing life in a way that we have not. And so there are all these different things that are keeping us from being our best selves. Mental health is a very serious issue across generations. Our political climate is oftentimes debilitating. The actual, like, oh, I don't have no money and gas is $7 a gallon. Like, that's stressful, right?
Hashtag
And
GTA
so, okay.
projects.
And so I would tell them, like, do the things you're supposed to do so that you will always have options when it comes time to something else. Having this degree, having these lessons, having these connections to these teachers and these opportunities provide you with options when you're done. If you don't finish, it can sometimes impede on the options that you have. All right. And lastly, your voice is yours. I know it may seem a little difficult because you're like, oh, no one sings like me. Yeah, because you're the one who's supposed to be singing. Your voice is a thumbprint, or fingerprint rather. They're all unique. Twins don't have the same thumbprint. So if your sound is different and unique, that means it's your sound. So don't try to sound like somebody else. Sound like you.
So you kind of touched on this, like you kind of was double dipping a little bit, but what advice would you have to a high school senior or somebody that wants to study music at college? Like they want to be a music major. What's the one piece of advice you would give them?
If you want to be a music major, first and foremost, ask yourself why. Why do I want to pursue this? And then, when you answer that question, what are the jobs that I want to do? And then let that guide where you go to school, what kind of major you're gonna be. You know, if you want to be a performer, right? If you want to be on a classical stage, yeah, you should be a music major because that's what most performance-based programs, you know, are those. That's what's prominent, right? You want to do commercial music, you might want to get some business classes under your belt so you know how to manage money, right?
Brand promotion.
Right. You know, I will also share with you to learn some of the other things that you're good at that you like to do because those are going to come in handy, right? Yes, you want to sing, you want to be a music major, but can you draw? Can you do set design? Can you do makeup? You might have to do your own makeup sometimes, which means you can do other people's makeup, right? Can you dance? Right? Can you play other instruments? Right? When I was in undergrad, you know, I got paid one thing to sing, and I got paid more to play the piano. So I said, I should probably keep my chops up, right? Because again, like I said in the last question, it gives you options, right? So why do you want to be a music major? What kind of jobs you want to do? And then let that guide, you know, the type of thing that you want to do. If you want to be a singer, sight read and ear train, all right? Sight reading, if you know, is going to help you. Even if you're not going to be a classical musician, sight reading is going to help you. It's going to help your ear. And most importantly, all of these things that I'm sharing with you, they're helping your discipline. They're helping you categorize information. They're helping you apply information in different contexts because that's what teaching is supposed to be doing. Get the discipline down. And you can do whatever you want to do. You can be a music minor and a communications major, right? If you're trying to make money off of music, there's some different jobs that you have. But if you're not trying to make money, but you just like to do it, that's okay too. You have options.
All right. Our last question is, where can people follow you and support you and learn more about the Fisk Jubilee Singers? And what is next for Dr. Preston Wilson?
Yeah. So I'm very easy to find. The Fisk Jubilee Singers, fiskjubileesingers.org. Singers with an S. fiskjubileesingers.org. You can find our website. You can get in contact with our booking agent if you would like to book us for an event. We'll be releasing our schedule for the upcoming academic year later on this summer. You can find me personally. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Threads.
Available for all talking engagements, speaking engagements, research collaborations, down the list.
You hit me up, and I'm probably gonna say yes. So, but yeah, I'm real easy to find. Preston Wilson Jr. What's next for me? I will be teaching over in France with the Tennessee Board of Regents through their Global Studies program over in July. Learning about their Global Studies program and doing some teaching, creating some classes, and hopefully it'll be a partnership that we can do over and over and over and over and over again. So, but happy that this summer is happening and I'm able to do some reading and research and relax. The 3 R's: reading, research, and relaxation.
And that was the piece of advice for the PhD student listening right there. If you didn't know, that was for the PhD student that's tuned in right there.
Reading, research, and relaxation. They can coexist. Don't let anybody tell you differently. It is possible.
It's funny. All right. Well, Dr. Wilson, we thank you so much for being here today, and it's been a great conversation. We might have to ask you to come back for some more.
And like I said, I'll say yes. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Of course. And we'll tune in. See y'all next time on the next session. Take care, everyone.